In ancient Egypt, where the Nile's pulse shaped a civilization, hair was no mere feature, it was a divine emblem. To the Egyptians, hair symbolized strength, eternity, and godhood, a sacred thread linking mortals to the cosmos. The towering wigs that crowned pharaohs and priests were not just adornments but declarations of power, woven with the mystique of gods like Isis and Osiris. Welcome to the giant wigs of ancient Egypt, power and spectacle, a journey into a culture that transformed hair into a sacred art, setting the stage for creations that rivaled the pyramids in ambition. To the Egyptians, hair was a cosmic force. Isis, goddess of magic, wore flowing tresses symbolizing life's renewal. Hathor, deity of beauty, bore locks that danced with divine grace. Osiris, lord of the afterlife, sported a mane of eternal authority. The Book of the Dead circa 1550 BC underscores this, with spells like chapter 150 for linking hair to the soul's vitality. Tomb reliefs from the Valley of the Kings depict nobles in elaborate wigs, their curls echoing divine archetypes. Hair was not just beauty, it was a claim to immortality, a mirror of the god's majesty. Yet, the Egyptians shaved their heads, a practice both practical and sacred. In the Nile's heat, bronze razors kept scalps clean, warding off lice and disease. As noted in the Papyrus Ebers circa 1550 BC, priests shaved to achieve ritual purity, entering temples untainted. But why remove such a sacred feature? The answer lies in the wig, a crafted masterpiece that transcended nature. Shaved heads became blank canvases for wigs that embodied perfection, their permanence defying the flaws of natural hair. Wigs were not replacements but elevations, transforming the wearer into a divine icon. In Egyptian cosmology, death was a continuation, not an end. The Book of the Dead emphasizes that the Ka, or spiritual double, needed a recognizable form in the afterlife. Wigs ensured this, preserving identity and status in the duet. Excavations in the tomb of Thutmose III KV34, circa 1450 BC, revealed wigs alongside the sarcophagus, their fibers gleaming with resin. Dame Duet text depicts pharaohs in wigs, their curls a crown of divine authority. These were sacred artifacts, ensuring the soul's journey was as regal as its earthly life. Giant wigs of ancient Egypt were born from faith and ambition, each strand a testament to a culture that saw beauty as divine. But how were these masterpieces crafted? Who wove the strands that crowned gods on earth? In the workshops of Memphis and Thebes, artisans transformed hair into art, a story wheel Unravel next, where every braid was a brushstroke in a divine portrait. In the heart of ancient Egypt, where the hum of artisans filled the air and the scent of resin lingered in workshops, the creation of a wig was not merely a task, it was a sacred alchemy. These towering, intricate creations, often weighing as much as a small child, were the work of skilled hands, transforming raw materials into symbols of divinity and dominion. To craft a wig was to sculpt a legacy, a process that demanded precision, artistry, and reverence. In this second chapter of the giant wigs of ancient Egypt, power and spectacle, we step into the workshops of Memphis and Thebes, where the art of wig-making elevated beauty to a divine profession. In the stratified society of ancient Egypt, wig-makers held a unique place, known as HMWW, or master craftsmen. These artisans were not mere laborers but revered specialists, their skills honed through years of apprenticeship. Papyrus records from the New Kingdom circa 1550 to 1070 BC mention workshops dedicated to wig-making, often attached to royal palaces or temples. These were spaces of intense creativity, where artisans worked alongside jewelers and perfumers, their collective efforts producing adornments worthy of gods and kings. The HMWW were a class apart, their expertise documented in texts like the Papyrus Anastasi IV, which lists the materials and tools of their trade. They were not only skilled in weaving and styling but also in the symbolic language of their craft. A wig destined for a pharaoh required different techniques than one for a priestess, each design encoded with social and spiritual significance. These artisans were storytellers, their medium the strands that would crown the elite of Egyptian society. The creation of a wig began with its raw materials, a palette as varied as the Nile itself. Human hair, often sourced from the wearer's own shaved head or from trade networks stretching to Nubia and Punt, was the gold standard. Its texture and strength made it ideal for intricate designs. But the Egyptians were masters of innovation, supplementing human hair with fibers from date palms, dyed wool, and even animal hides for structure. The Astrakhan Dir al-Medina circa 1290 to 1075 BCE describes the use of linen threads, dyed black or blue, to mimic the sheen of natural hair. To bind these materials, artisans employed saps and resins, such as mastic gum and beeswax, which provided both adhesion and a glossy finish. Scented oils, infused with myrrh or lotus, were worked into the fibers, ensuring the wig carried the fragrance of divinity. Gold and silver threads, woven into the strands, caught the light, transforming the wearer into a living icon. The choice of materials was not arbitrary. Each was selected for its durability and symbolic weight, ensuring the wig could withstand both the heat of the desert and the scrutiny of the gods. The process of creating a wig was a marvel of precision. Artisans began by constructing a foundation, often a net of linen or leather, tailored to the wearer's head. Onto this, they wove strands of hair or fiber, using techniques that remain astonishingly sophisticated. Braiding was a cornerstone, with patterns ranging from simple three-strand plaits to complex multi-strand designs that mimic natural curls. Excavations at Amarna reveal tools like bone combs and bronze needles, used to tease and secure each strand. For royal wigs, the process was even more elaborate. Artisans used wooden or metal frames to create volume, layering hair and tiers to achieve the iconic giant silhouette. The tripartite style, with its three distinct sections of curls, required hours of meticulous work. Each section anchored with resin-soaked thread. Gold wire was often twisted into the braids, adding both structure and splendor. The Nubian style, with its tight, voluminous curls, demanded a different approach, with artisans using heated rods to shape the hair into perfect spirals. Wigs were not one-size-fits-all. They were tailored to reflect gender and status. Men's wigs, often shorter and more structured, emphasized strength and authority. The short, rounded wig, seen in reliefs of Pharaoh Ramses II, hugged the scalp, its tight curls framing the face with disciplined elegance. Women's wigs, by contrast, were longer and more ornate, designed to evoke fertility and beauty. The enveloping wig, cascading over the shoulders, was a favorite of noble women, its flowing strands adorned with beads and gold. The differences were not merely aesthetic. Women's wigs often incorporated softer materials, like dyed wool, to create a fuller, more voluminous effect. Men's wigs, meanwhile, prioritized durability, with tighter braids and heavier resin to withstand public appearances. The tomb of Mena circa 1400 BC depicts these distinctions vividly, with men and women side by side, their wigs proclaiming their roles in the cosmic order. Consider the creation of a royal wig, such as one crafted for Queen Nefertiti. The process began with measurements taken by the HMWW, ensuring a perfect fit. A linen net was woven, its mesh fine enough to be invisible yet strong enough to support pounds of hair. Strands of human hair, sourced from the queen's own offerings or imported from distant lands, were dyed a deep black, the color of fertility and rebirth. Artisans braided these strands into the iconic Nubian style, each curl meticulously shaped with heated rods and coated with myrrh-infused resin. Gold beads and lapis lazuli were threaded into the braids, their weight balanced to ensure comfort. The final touch was a diadem, often inlaid with turquoise or carnelian, anchoring the wig as a crown of divine authority. Such a wig could take weeks to complete, its creation a collaborative effort between weavers, jewelers, and perfumers. When Nefertiti wore it, she was not merely a queen but a living goddess. Her wig a testament to the artistry and ambition of her people. The wigs of ancient Egypt were more than adornments. They were feats of engineering, artistry, and devotion. Each strand, each bead, each curl was a deliberate act, a stitch in the fabric of a civilization that saw beauty as a divine mandate. As we move forward in this series, we will explore how these creations became symbols of power, worn by pharaohs and priests to proclaim their dominion. But for now, picture the artisan at work, their hands weaving a legacy that would outlast the sands of time, a legacy that began with a single strand and ended with a crown. In the sun-drenched courts of ancient Egypt, where the shadow of the obelisk stretched long and the air thrummed with the chants of priests, a single glance could proclaim your place in the cosmos. Here, power was not just wielded, it was worn. The giant wigs of pharaohs, nobles, and priests were more than adornments. They were towering declarations of authority, divinity, and destiny. In this third chapter of the giant wigs of ancient Egypt, power and spectacle, we ascend the social hierarchy of the Nile Valley. Exploring how these elaborate creations became the ultimate symbols of status, each curl and braid a testament to a wearer's proximity to the gods. The wig as a crown of power in ancient Egypt. The size and splendor of a wig spoke volumes. The larger and more ornate the wig, the closer its wearer stood to the divine. Pharaohs, as living gods, donned wigs of staggering scale, some weighing up to 5 kilograms, their voluminous curls cascading like the Nile itself. Nobles followed suit, their wigs slightly less grandiose but no less intricate, while priests wore styles that balanced piety with prestige. The stele of Amenhotep III circa 1390 BC depicts the pharaoh in a towering Nubian wig, its tight curls framing his face like a halo, a visual assertion of his divine mandate. This was no accident. The Egyptians understood that appearance was a language, and wigs were its most eloquent dialect. The Book of the Dead and temple inscriptions, such as those at Karnak, describe the pharaoh's wig as a crown of justification, a sacred emblem that aligned the ruler with Horus, the falcon god of kingship. For nobles and priests, wigs served as badges of rank, distinguishing them from the common folk whose simpler styles reflected their earthly station. In a society where hierarchy was etched into every facet of life, the wig was a mobile monument, proclaiming its wearer's place in the cosmic order. The wigs of ancient Egypt were as varied as the roles they adorned, each style a carefully crafted statement. The Nubian wig, with its tight, voluminous curls, was a favorite of royalty, its spherical silhouette evoking the sun god Ra. Queen Nefertiti's iconic blue wig, immortalized in her famous bust circa 1345 BC, is a prime example. Its vibrant hue and gold band signaling her divine femininity. The tripartite wig, divided into 3 sections of thick braids, was often worn by nobles and high priests, its structured form symbolizing order and stability. Reliefs from the tomb of Horemheb KV 57 show this style in meticulous detail, each braid a testament to the wearer's authority. The conical wig, with its upward taper, was reserved for religious contexts, often worn by priestesses of Hathor or Isis. Its shape, resembling a flame, suggested spiritual ascension, a visual prayer to the gods. Meanwhile, the fringed wig, with straight bangs covering the ears, was popular among both men and women of the elite, its sleek lines conveying understated elegance. The tomb of Rekhmire circa 1450 BC showcases this diversity, with officials and their wives sporting distinct styles that reflect their roles and genders. Each style was a deliberate choice, its design rooted in symbolism. The Nubian wig's curls, for instance, mimicked the natural hair of Nubian allies, signaling Egypt's dominion over its southern neighbors. The tripartite wig's 3 sections echoed the triad of gods Osiris, Isis, and Horus, linking the wearer to divine harmony. These were not mere fashions but coded messages, decipherable to those versed in the visual grammar of Egyptian society. No discussion of Egyptian wigs is complete without the legendary figures who wore them. Queen Nefertiti's blue Nubian wig, now an emblem of ancient beauty, was more than a style statement. Crafted from dyed human hair and adorned with gold, it was a political tool, aligning her with Hathor, the goddess of beauty and love. The bust, discovered in Amarna in 1912, reveals the wig's meticulous construction, its curls so precise they seem to defy time. Nefertiti's wig was a crown in all but name, its azure hue a nod to the lapis lazuli revered as the stone of the gods. Pharaoh Tutankhamun, the boy king, also left his mark on the history of wigs. His tomb KV 62, and covered in 1922, contained several wigs, including a short, rounded style that emphasized his youthful vigor. These wigs, preserved with resin and gold thread, were designed for both life and death, ensuring his divine image endured in the afterlife. The Imduat texts in his tomb depict him with a tripartite wig, its braids symbolizing his role as restorer of order after the Amarna heresy. Priests, too, embraced the wig's power. The high priests of Amun, based in Thebes, wore conical wigs during rituals, their upward sweep a visual prayer to the heavens. The tomb of Userhat circa 1450 BC shows priests in these wigs, their shaved heads beneath a reminder of their purity. These styles were not static, they evolved with each dynasty, reflecting shifts in power and theology. Yet their core purpose remained, to elevate the wearer above the mortal plane. While royalty and priests donned the most elaborate wigs, the lower classes had their own versions, albeit simpler. Commoners often wore short, Practical wigs made of dyed wool or palm fiber, as seen in the Straka of Deir el-Medina circa 1290 to 1075 BC. These were functional, designed to protect the scalp and signal modest status. Nobles, by contrast, favored longer, more intricate designs, often incorporating gold or beads to distinguish themselves from the masses. The tomb of Nakht circa 1400 BC illustrates this divide, with laborers in simple wigs juxtaposed against nobles in voluminous, bejeweled creations. Priests occupied a middle ground, their wigs balancing piety with prestige. The fringed wig, with its straight bangs, was a common choice, its simplicity reflecting spiritual humility while its craftsmanship hinted at authority. The Stele of Pazur circa 1250 BC shows a priest in such a wig, its clean lines contrasting with the ornate tripartite wig of his noble patron. This hierarchy of style was a visual map of Egyptian society, each wig a marker of one's place in the cosmic and earthly order, traced in stone. The evidence of art. Wigs of ancient Egypt live on in the art that adorns its temples and tombs. The walls of Karnak and Luxor are a gallery of wig styles, from the Nubian curls of Ramses to the conical wigs of Hathor's priestesses. The tomb of Sennacherib circa 1290 BC offers a vivid snapshot, with family members depicted in wigs that reflect their roles, men in short, structured styles, women in flowing, beaded designs. These images were not mere decoration but eternal portraits, ensuring the wearer's identity endured in the afterlife. Sculpture, too, captures the wig's grandeur. The colossal statues of Amenhotep III at Thebes show him in a tripartite wig, its braids carved with such precision they seem to ripple in the desert wind. The sphinxes of Hatshepsut at Deir el-Bahri wear Nubian wigs, their curls a symbol of her divine authority as a female pharaoh. These artworks are more than relics. They are a testament to a culture that saw beauty as a bridge to eternity. The wigs of pharaohs, nobles, and priests were not just accessories but declarations of identity, power, and divinity. They were crafted to command awe, their size and splendor a reflection of the wearer's place in the cosmos. As we move forward in this series, we will explore how these wigs were adorned with gold, jewels, and sacred scents, transforming them into mobile masterpieces. For now, picture a pharaoh stepping into the sunlight, his wig a cascade of curls that catches every eye. This was not just hair, it was a crown, a cosmos, a claim to eternity. From symbols of power, we enter a world of opulence, where wigs became altars of extravagance. In ancient Egypt, a wig was not just worn, it was worshipped, adorned with gold, jewels, and sacred scents that elevated it to divine art. These creations, glittering under the Nile sun, transformed pharaohs and nobles into living gods. In this fourth chapter of the Giant Wigs of Ancient Egypt, Power and Spectacle, we explore how artisans crafted wigs into spectacles of splendor, where every bead and fragrance was a hymn to eternity. A wig's beauty lay in its embellishments. Gold, the metal of Ra, was woven into strands or shaped into bands, as found in the tomb of Queen Tai circa 1355 BC. Silver, rare and lunar, adorned priestesses' wigs, while lapis lazuli and carnelian evoked the heavens and earth. Faience beads, coral, and red seashells added vibrant color, as seen in the tomb of Ka circa 1400 BC. These materials, chosen for spiritual weight, turned wigs into radiant icons, their glow a reflection of divine favor. Fragrance was a wig's soul. Myrrh, imported from Punt, linked wigs to Osiris, while lotus symbolized rebirth. The papyrus Ebers circa 1550 BC lists recipes blending frankincense and nutmeg, worked into wigs with beeswax cones that melted to release scent. The tomb of Nebuchadnezzar circa 1350 BC shows nobles with such cones, their wigs glistening with resin. In temple rituals, priests anointed wigs with myrrh, their aroma a prayer to the gods, making each wig a sensory offering. Wigs rivaled royal headdresses in grandeur. The Stele of Akhenaten circa 1353 BC depicts the pharaoh in a Nubian wig with gold and lapis, its size a throne of hair. Nefertiti's wigs, topped with diadems, were platforms for divine authority, as seen in the tomb of Menkaten circa 1340 BC. And death, wigs were adorned with equal care, their jewels ensuring dignity in the afterlife. The tomb of Yuya and Juyu circa 1388 BC held wigs with gold bands, preserved for eternity, a testament to their role as sacred crowns. Rituals of splendor adorned wigs shown in religious rites. During the Feast of Opet, nobles were scented, Jeweled wigs, their brilliance lighting carnac's processions. In funerary rites, embalmers anointed wigs with lotus oil, as in Tutankhamun's tomb KV 62, circa 1323 BC, ensuring the soul's divine presence. The Book of Gates describes wigs as markers of worth in the underworld. Their splendor a shield against oblivion, each jewel, each cent, was a step toward immortality. These wigs, dripping with gold and fragrance, were divine masterpieces. Their beauty a bridge to the gods, but their role extended beyond life, into the tombs where they guarded the soul's journey. Next, we'll explore how wigs became sacred talismans in death, ensuring the deceased's legacy in the eternal realm. From the opulent wigs adorned with gold and sacred scents, we descend into the shadowed tombs of ancient Egypt, where these creations became more than adornments. They were talismans for eternity, in a culture that saw death as a doorway to the divine. Wigs ensured the soul's identity and power endured in the afterlife. In this fifth chapter of the giant wigs of ancient Egypt, Power and Spectacle, we explore how these towering masterpieces anchored the deceased in the duet, their curls and jewels a final act of defiance against oblivion. Wigs as eternal and cursed to the Egyptians. The afterlife demanded a recognizable form. The Book of the Dead circa 1550 BC, with spells like Chapter 172, links hair to the Ka, the spiritual double, ensuring it could face the gods. Wigs, crafted with divine precision, preserved this identity. Tombs from the New Kingdom circa 1550 to 1070 BC often held wigs alongside mummies, treated with resins for eternity. The tomb of Uya and Juyu KV 46, circa 1388 BC, yielded wigs with gold beads, their myrrh-scented braids intact, a testament to their role as sacred vessels. Funerary rites elevated wigs to sacred status. During the opening of the mouth ceremony, embalmers placed wigs on mummies to restore senses for the afterlife, as depicted in the tomb of AKV 23. Circa 1323 BC, the ritual of embalming describes anointing wigs with myrrh and lotus oil, ensuring divine favor. Tutankhamun's tomb KV 62, circa 1323 BC, contained a short, rounded wig, its curls preserved with beeswax, ready for the boy king's eternal court. These rituals made wigs not just adornments but passports to immortality. The desert's embrace preserved stunning evidence. In the tomb of the noblewoman of Thebes circa 1400 BC, a mummy wore a Nubian wig with gold threads and faience beads, its lotus scent lingering. The Valley of the Kings revealed Hatshepsut's conical wig fragments KV 20, circa 1479 BC, their upward taper a priestess queen's prayer. At Deir el-Bahri, a priestess's tomb circa 1000 BC held a wig with coral and lapis, its braids a badge of divine status. These finds, housed in the Cairo Museum, show wigs as meticulously crafted for death as for life. Funerary texts and art immortalized wigs' role. The Book of Gates describes the soul's journey, with wigs marking divine worth. The tomb of Sennacherib circa 1290 BC shows the deceased in tripartite wigs, their braids ensuring eternal identity. In the tomb of Thutmose III KV 34, circa 1450 BC, the pharaoh's Nubian wig aligns him with Osiris. These images were magical tools, anchoring the soul's form in the underworld, where beauty was a shield against the void. In death, wigs were a final declaration of power, their curls and jewels ensuring the deceased shone before the gods. But their legacy did not end in the tombs. How did these creations inspire distant cultures and modern icons? Next, we trace their journey from the Nile to Hollywood, where the giant wig's splendor still captivates. The giant wigs of ancient Egypt, with their towering curls and glittering adornments, were more than artifacts of a bygone era. They were seeds of inspiration, sown along the banks of the Nile and carried across centuries to bloom in distant lands, from the courts of Greco-Roman Egypt to the opulent salons of Baroque Europe, and finally to the dazzling stages of modern Hollywood. The legacy of these wigs endures as a testament to the timeless allure of beauty as power. In this final chapter of the giant wigs of ancient Egypt, Power and Spectacle, we trace the journey of these iconic creations, exploring how their echoes resonate in fashion, art, and culture, proving that the quest for spectacle is as eternal as the pyramids themselves. As Egypt fell under the sway of foreign powers, the tradition of the giant wig did not fade but adapted. The Ptolemaic dynasty 305-30 BC, blending Greek and Egyptian traditions, embraced wigs as symbols of divine kingship. Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh, was renowned for her elaborate wigs, often styled in the Nubian or tripartite fashion but infused with Hellenistic flair. The Rosetta Stone 196 BC and portraits from fame depict Ptolemaic nobles in wigs adorned with Greek-style diadems, their curls softened to reflect Mediterranean aesthetics. The Romans, upon conquering Egypt in 30 BC, were equally captivated. Roman women in Alexandria adopted Egyptian wigs, blending them with their own elaborate hairstyles. The famed mummy portraits 1st–3rd century CE show women with voluminous wigs, their hair interwoven with gold and pearls, a direct nod to Egyptian traditions. These wigs, while less monumental than their pharaonic predecessors, carried the same message. Beauty was a declaration of power, a bridge to the divine. The influence of Egyptian wigs resurfaced in Europe during the Baroque and Rococo periods, when excess became the language of power. In the court of Louis XIV 1643–1715, the Sun King, towering wigs became the hallmark of nobility. These perukes, often reaching heights of a foot or more, were inspired by classical antiquity, including Egypt's monumental styles. Engravings from Versailles show courtiers in wigs that echo the Nubian silhouette, their curls powdered and adorned with ribbons, a distant cousin of Nefertiti's bull masterpiece. The Rococo era took this extravagance further. Marie Antoinette, Queen of France 1774–1792, was infamous for her pouf hairstyles, towering creations that incorporated feathers, jewels, and even miniature ships. These styles, documented in portraits by Elizabeth Figi Lebrun, owe a debt to Egyptian wigs. Their scale and opulence a nod to the pharaoh's belief that beauty signified dominion. The Encyclopedia of Diderot 1751–1770 references Egyptian influences in European fashion, citing the use of gold and scented powders as echoes of Nile Valley rituals. And this way, the wigs of ancient Egypt found new life in the courts of Europe, their legacy woven into the fabric of Western opulence. In the 20th and 21st centuries, the giant wigs of ancient Egypt leapt from history to the silver screen, becoming icons of glamour and power. The 1963 film Cleopatra, starring Elizabeth Taylor, cemented the Egyptian wig as a cultural touchstone. Taylor's Nubian-inspired wigs, designed by Hollywood's top stylists, were adorned with gold and beads, their scale evoking the grandeur of Nefertiti. The film's costume designer, Rini, drew heavily from archaeological finds, ensuring the wigs captured the spirit of ancient Egypt while mesmerizing modern audiences. This influence persists in contemporary culture. Beyoncé's 2007 Bidet music video and her 2013 Super Bowl performance featured Egyptian-inspired wigs, their voluminous curls and gold accents a tribute to the pharaoh's aesthetic. Designers like Thierry Mugler and Alexander McQueen have drawn on Egyptian wigs for haute couture, their runway shows featuring towering headpieces that echo the tripartite and conical styles. The Met Gala of 2019, theme camp, Oats on Fashion, saw celebrities like Zendaya and Billy Porter donning wigs inspired by Egyptian motifs. Their scale and splendor a nod to the Nile's legacy. The enduring appeal of Egyptian wigs lies in their universal message: beauty is a weapon, a declaration of authority that transcends time. In ancient Egypt, a wig was a crown, a prayer, a passport to eternity. In Baroque Europe, it was a symbol of divine right. In modern Hollywood, it is a statement of charisma and influence. This continuity reflects a profound truth. The quest to adorn oneself, to craft an image that commands all, is a human constant, as vital today as it was on the banks of the Nile. The archaeological record supports this legacy. The tomb of Nefertari QV66, circa 1255 BC, contains frescoes of the queen in a Nubian wig, its curls a timeless emblem of her power. Today, designers and artists return to these images, finding in them a blueprint for spectacle. The Metropolitan Museum of Art's 2018 exhibit, Jewelry, the Body Transformed, showcased Egyptian wigs alongside modern interpretations, highlighting their influence on global fashion. From the runways of Paris to the stages of Coachella, the giant wig remains a symbol of ambition, a reminder that beauty can shape destinies. As we close this series, consider this: we may no longer wear wigs weighing 5 kilograms, their curls heavy with gold and scented with myrrh, but the impulse behind them endures. From the pharaohs who wore them to commune with the gods, to the queens who used them to dazzle courts, to the icons who donned them to captivate audiences, The giant wigs of ancient Egypt remind us that beauty is more than skin deep, it is a force, a legacy, a claim to eternity. From the sands of the Nile to the lights of Hollywood, the story of the wig is the story of humanity itself, forever reaching for the divine through the power of spectacle.